Thank you, Ryan. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Hello, Shortbox Live. Let's give it up for everyone who's been working so hard for the past several weeks this morning, putting this event together. Give them a round of applause. The whole Shortbox team. Just amazing. Give yourselves a round of applause for hanging out on a Sunday morning. It's so great being here. If you don't know who I am, I'm Erik Voss, and I run a YouTube channel called New Rockstars, and it's part of a digital network that includes a couple different channels now. But yeah, so what I do is analyze movies and TV shows that are adapted from these comic book titles that we love so much. The biggest titles right now, obviously, are the Marvel, DC, Star Wars adaptations, Invincible, Walking Dead, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we do on our channel. Here, I'm gonna get my phone in my pocket. How rude, my phone's in my hand. Yeah, this is the idiot that you see on YouTube if you follow me. I have a blue backdrop that was supposed to be keyed out for our content. We just stopped doing it because we're lazy. And then we just cover me with assets. So New Rockstars is the name of the channel. Deep Dive is the new channel that we've launched. We have about 3.91 million subscribers. Which is just because we've been doing it for a long time. It's nothing to be proud of, but we just want to give you guys a sense of like what we do. And we have 1.7 billion views since 2011. I've been there since 2015. And so we are the channel that whenever a big new Marvel trailer drops on YouTube, we will have an Easter egg breakdown of that. We'll go through it frame by frame, analyzing the visuals, the music, the themes, the dialogue, the casting choices. We'll be theorizing what might be coming next. And these are some of the comic IP adaptations that we've been covering. Robert Kirkman titles like Walking Dead and Invincible, Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, G. Willow Wilson's Miss Marvel. So yeah, my job as a YouTuber, and this is like a mission that I have, is I love films, I love television. I've written some of these scripts before. Didn't sell any of them, but I just still love analyzing them so much. I want to celebrate the artistry that goes into them, both the people who work on the film and television adaptation, but more importantly, the people who wrote the comics or the source material that inspired it directly. I try to shine a light on this. A lot of the people who watch our content on YouTube don't have a lot of experience reading comics, surprisingly, unfortunately. So part of my mission is to reveal the people who worked on the source material and to point them in the direction of where they need to be spending their time to read and get to know this stuff, so that when they go watch something like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 or a new season of Invincible, that there's an amazing comic book that inspired all this. And in some cases, these studios are just, I don't want to say ripping them off because they own them, but they translate it A to screen in a way that sometimes that can celebrate what was already there, sometimes build on it, but I think it's helpful to just go back and look at what was there before. And specifically for what you are all here for is the way that it affects the market of comic book trading, of course. I don't have as much experience in that, but I can tell you specifically there are what we refer to as Easter eggs that are put into these titles that absolutely affect the market and change the market in ways that are surprising. And sometimes the market is only affected when titles are announced. But realistically, Marvel already shows its hand. DC and these other studios will show their hand on where they're intending to go with small Easter eggs that they put into earlier titles years before. So I don't know, maybe I can help you all understand, or maybe you can come back to me and give me some information on this, but I think I might be able to point you in the direction of how analyzing these types of things, you can identify and read the tea leaves for the future of these franchises. If you do have any questions, by the way, I'm around here at the end of this short chat. If you want to ask me some questions, I can try to help you out. I'll also be around here walking around for the next few hours, so you can just find me and we can nerd out together. One thing I try to point people at, let's see. Here we go. Okay, so a famous image, right? This is from obviously the God of Thunder storyline by Jason Aaron. This art, amazing image by Esad Ribic of Falagar the Behemoth. The above image is the image from the comic from 2012. The below image is from the trailer of Marvel's Thor: Love and Thunder that came out in 2022, 10 years later. I love to point this out because it is one of the most shameless adaptations of some beautiful comic art and imagery. And Taika Waititi and his team basically just took the exact same image. They added Korg, the Cronin, to it. And literally the same exact spikes, the trickle of blood from Thalagar the Behemoth's nose, just with not as good as writing. And I like to point these things out to tell people, if you like this image, to me, the most striking image in that entire film, go read the comic behind it. Because the comic is so fascinating. I like to look into the process that goes into how these filmmakers do it. I don't know if Taika Waititi, he referenced at Comic-Con in 2019 that he was going to be looking at Jason Aaron's comic, specifically the Mighty Thor comic, of course, that follows Jane Foster picking up Mjolnir and becoming the Mighty Thor. I have to imagine that this image, the above image, was on a concept art board, and that there was like a team of previs artists who were like, yeah, we're going to put this on screen because it looks freaking awesome. But the meaning, the weight behind it, I don't know if it translated directly into Thor: Love and Thunder, a movie that I appreciated and I liked. But I think when you look at the trailer, you can see this image in the trailer and know exactly what kind of storyline they're looking at. A lot of my job is prognostication, speculation of what storylines and what tone they might be going for. And a lot of times you can look at comic book imagery in movie trailers and really determine, oh, they're going to bring in this arc or this moment from the comics. And you can kind of speculate and set your expectations accordingly. Another example, okay, so a lot of people are wondering where the Marvel Universe is going next. And after Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, there's this moment where John Krasinski is playing a variant of Reed Richards' Mr. Fantastic. He talks about the term incursion and what an incursion means in the multiverse and gives us a definition. Many of us, when we saw that movie, our minds were blown because basically what John Krasinski is saying in that scene is almost an exact, not word, I guess it's not word for word, but it is a very similar paraphrasing of what Jonathan Hickman wrote for the Time Runs Out storyline when an incursion is happening, where a red alternate Earth is appearing over Wakanda, the Illuminati meet. And then Reed Richards has this amazing textbook explanation showing different nodes on a screen and what happens when two worlds appear at the same time, what an incursion is. And that, of course, leads to Secret Wars, the 2015 version of Secret Wars. So when we saw that in May 2022, many of us knew exactly what was going because we just know the terminology that was using. The Marvel has started to get wind of what we're doing. It's not just me, there's many channels that do this on YouTube and on other platforms. Marvel has started to play this game where they insert QR codes into their TV episodes. So in like Moon Knight and Ms. Marvel, and some of these Disney Plus adaptations, they put these QR codes where you can pause, scan it with your phone, and it'll bring you to a specific free comic that you can get. Which I think is a great move by Marvel because it at least directs people to read these comics. What I wish they would do, and of course, you know, Marvel isn't always transparent about these things, I would hope that these comics creators get more than just an acknowledgement, a special thanks and a shout out. I think when you're pulling their direct comic imagery and putting it on screen, they deserve a royalty for that. I know everyone's a work for hire, but when you're using the image of Thalagar the Behemoth to sell your movie, like there's gonna be tens of millions of more dollars you make, and someone should get a cut of that. So I think at least if you can get people to read the comics, that's the first step. Okay, so this one's a crazy one. Part of my job is to analyze visuals, and I have to kind of have a working knowledge of specific comic issues. This is another example from Marvel's Moon Knight on Disney+. In episode 3 of that series, there's a guy who has a jean jacket, and on the back of it is a specific Egyptian pharaoh art, and it has a specifically shaped headpiece that we were able to identify as Mike Del Mundo's art of Kang the Conqueror in the Avengers Kang War storyline. That's the only place where I believe Kang wears an Egyptian headpiece as his variant form of Pharaoh Rama-Tut that looks exactly like that. So we were able to determine from there that Kang was coming. We knew that He Who Remains was the villain revealed of Loki at the end of that series the year before, but we knew that they were going to bring in a Pharaoh Rama-Tut variant. So when, spoilers for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, it's been out for a few months. When Farrah Ramatet makes a cameo there, we were not surprised. And this was actually confirmed to us by a friend of the channel, someone who was a producer on that episode of Moon Knight, who actually confirmed to us how these Easter eggs come about. It's not always the director and the screenwriter of it. Sometimes it's a member of the set crew, or it's a member of Marvel's studio team. In this case, the producer works for Marvel Studios. Interestingly, on all these projects, it's a collaboration between the studio and the brain trust and the executive producers who work on all these titles, and then the director and writer who they contracted out to. And the tea leaf style Easter eggs are more likely to be inserted there by the Marvel Studios team, the people who do the previs, the production design. And in this case, that's what it was. It was a costume wardrobe piece that was suggested to be used for this day player that had this exact look of Kang's headdress. I mean, sometimes they'll just do it with VFX. A lot of those QR codes are just VFX they put in there. In this case, an actor wore it, which I think is really fun. Just to give you guys an insight of other things that we do on the New Rockstars channel is we'll look at license plates, because a lot of directors will like to put license plate numerical codes. And in this case, in 2017 Spider-Man Homecoming, one license plate said HTD003, which we were able to determine is a reference to Howard the Duck #3 from 2015, Bobby Rubio's variant cover when Howard the Duck is on the Staten Island ferry. So this is just another example of how directors like to give a shout out to fans who are obsessively watching these. Okay, so let's give some examples of why this matters to people who buy, sell, trade, collect comics. I want to thank the Shortbox team for giving me some data here. Let's look at the timeline of the Black Panther film and how that affected the value of the Black Panther's first appearance in Marvel Comics, which was Fantastic Four number 52 in 1961. Just kind of the timeline of this. The value of it around 2013, 2014, before the movie was announced to be in the adaptation pipeline, it was around $500 for a CGC 8.0. Black Panther, the movie was announced by Marvel Studios at their big Disney press conference at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood in October 2014. And of course, right away, as soon as everyone knows this movie is coming for sure, it skyrockets up to $1,240, then to $1,400. And then the first teaser comes out, June 2017. It's around $1,323. The movie releases in 2018, obviously a big game-changing movie. And then the value goes up to closer to $2,000. And then in 2019, it was at $2,400. Okay, and this is just for a Fantastic Four comic known as Black Panther's first appearance in Marvel Comics. What makes my job interesting, I think, is even before Black Panther was announced to even be in development by Marvel Studios, all the way back in 2010, Marvel Studios announced their intention to do a Black Panther adaptation in Iron Man 2 by putting Wakanda literally on the map in the same frame as Robert Downey Jr. In that moment, not only did they say that we at some point want to do a Black Panther adaptation, we're going to do a Namor adaptation and have Atlantis. Because look over there in the middle of the South Atlantic, that's Atlantis. Kevin Feige, head of Marvel Studios, has confirmed this. I don't know if this is helpful for you guys, but I'm just saying, Marvel does this all the time. They put in Easter eggs in the background to just kind of say where they are going. And yeah, sometimes they cast a wide net and they'll say we'll get to it eventually, but this combined with just a statement by a Marvel executive like, we're looking at Eternals, or we're looking at a Nova movie. Start looking at your collections, look at the market, because you may be able to get something for a low amount, and I guarantee you it will jump up over time as soon as the next Comic-Con or the next D23 event comes around. It just wouldn't surprise me. As soon as this becomes real, you may already have your hands on something. I mean, I don't do this myself. I'm just saying that these Easter eggs come up years in advance. Another example I want to point you to is Eternals, okay? So Eternals fascinates me as a comic book title and as a franchise, because as soon as the Eternals trailer came out for last year's Eternals film, or that was 2021, there was a lot of people who do what I do, who talk about it on YouTube or in podcasting or TV or whatever, and everyone was using the same talking points about Eternals because it was clear very few people actually read Eternals because, I mean, it was one of the lesser popular titles from the 70s. But it became such an important thing to the mythology of the Marvel world. So of course Marvel's going to want to explore that. But just a similar timeline here. In 2015, before Marvel says that they're going to do anything with it, the value is around $200, creeps up, and then in 2018, suddenly jumps up to $950. What was the inflection point there? Well, in April 2018, while Kevin Feige was promoting Avengers Infinity War, he says in a quote, "Eternals is one of many, many, many things that we are actively beginning to have creative discussions about." He probably in the same paragraph mentioned a ton of other titles, yet people heard Eternals and suddenly the value went up of that 1976 first Eternals issue. And then 2019, Comic-Con that summer, Kevin Feige makes it confirmed that we are getting an Eternals movie, introduces the cast, the director, and then it jumps up to $1,400, then up to $1,500. And then after May 2021, when we get our trailer, our first trailer for the Eternals movie, $2,700, and then now it's dropped back down. But that's kind of when we were at peak Eternals interest. What I find interesting about the Eternals history on the film side, we kind of knew this was coming. We knew this was coming back in 2014, in my opinion, with Guardians of the Galaxy, the first Guardians of the Galaxy, which was more of an adaptation of the Abnett and Lanning run of the Guardians, the kind of relaunch of the Guardians in 2008. There was a Celestial in that movie, or in those comics, my favorite setting and location in the Marvel world, which is the Skull of Nowhere. However, James Gunn made another choice, and I believe this one movie did so much world building of the MCU. They introduced another Celestial in the flashback of the Infinity Stones origin story, a Celestial that James Gunn later identified as Aeson the Searcher. But the fact that he used Jack Kirby's design for the Celestials, a giant armored space god with the 6 holes in his helmet, was so important. Because in that moment, every Marvel fan got so excited. We knew what the future was going to look like, and it was going to look like Jack Kirby's original designs. They didn't do some other weird thing and say this is what Celestial looked like. They didn't do what one of the Fantastic Four movies did and had a space cloud that they said was Galactus because they didn't believe comic book fans or film goers would believe it. You could stick to the original designs of a giant armored space god with 6 holes in his helmet and we'll buy it. And that is exactly the same production design and visual aesthetic that they later used for the Eternals film. This was a proof of concept in 2014. To anyone who might have any kind of doubt or skepticism that Marvel Studios will adapt the original Jack Kirby designs of the Eternals back from the 70s. And that's exactly what they did. Literally, they brought in Erisham the Judge in the Eternals trailer. And I would say the Eternals film was not an Eternals film. They should have called it Celestials. Because say what you will about the Eternals, I love them. They have especially the late 90s version of it. I really love that adaptation. But what got me excited to see that movie was how they were going to show the scale of the Celestials. To me, this is Marvel's Death Star. It's just an awe-inspiring image that gives you a sense of appreciation of the history. Obviously, not everyone was a huge fan of the Eternals film, but I just love the design of these things. And the fact that James Gunn just snuck this in as a little Easter egg for a couple seconds in a movie in 2014. To me, anyone who was looking closely at these tea leaves could tell you, okay, we're going to get an Eternals movie at some point. Because that design of the Celestials is directly linked to the Eternals. We're going to see the origin of the Marvel world. It's just a matter of time. Okay, so just to give you guys a sense of where things are going from this, where things might be going now, again, I can only read the tea leaves. We know some adaptations that are coming in Marvel Phase 5 and Phase 6. Secret Invasion is coming in a month or two. So obviously looking at the 2009 Brian Michael Bendis Secret Invasion comic, I just highly recommend you read it. But yeah, as that TV show comes out, I think it's going to be an amazing series on Disney+. It's going to be a return to form. It's going to remind a lot of people of the spycraft subgenre, the MCU of Captain America: The Winter Soldier. A lot of people are wondering with the next 2 Avengers movies, what exact issues of Kang the Conqueror, if they'll even still use Kang the Conqueror. I think they can. I think they will. But specifically, the issue I talked about with Kang Dynasty, based off of the imagery that they've used of Pharaoh Rama-Tut, The fact that we've seen specific forms of Kang the Conqueror from Immortus, Pharaoh Ramatut, versions that are Scarlet Centurion, Mr. Griffin, Victor Timely. It seems like they're doing that same kind of spread, that array, that spectrum of Kangs that we saw the Avengers take on in the Mike Del Mundo, Mark Waid version of Avengers Unleashed, the Kang War storyline from 2015, I believe this one that was. So I think that will become a valuable one. Now, Secret Wars, obviously going to be a huge event. Everyone's really excited for Secret Wars, and that's going to be coming, we think, in 2026. It's probably going to be more of an adaptation of the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars, the 2015 Secret Wars, just because they're already setting up the Time Runs Out storyline with that line from Reed Richards and Multiverse of Madness. However, I think just as important will be to look at the 1984-1985 Secret Wars storyline. Why? The Russo brothers have been in conversations to direct. They've denied that they're going to come back to the Marvel movies. I think there's a very good chance that Marvel will talk them into it. They talked about how they were huge fans of Secret Wars growing up when they read comics. When do you think the Russo brothers were reading comics? When they were teenagers in the 80s? Or when they were directing episodes of Community and directing movies for Marvel in the mid-2010s? When they talk about what they love about Secret Wars, I think they're talking about the 80s version. So just don't be surprised if, like, the Avengers Secret Wars movie is a celebration of both eras of Secret Wars. We're gonna have celebrations of both eras of history. Specifically, I'm talking about the black-suited Spider-Man, which is something that we have not seen since the Sam Raimi movies when they did the Venom adaptation. But just getting your hands on that Secret Wars number 8 from 1984, the first issue where, I mean, just how important that was to Marvel fans, that it was a letter writing campaign to get a black-suited Spider-Man, which Venom did not exist before that, and they were able to derive Venom from that storyline. Such an important inflection point in Marvel history that we have not seen yet done properly, I believe, and not done at all in the MCU or in the Tom Holland version of it, or if they recast it. So I think that's going to be a critical one to look at. Ironheart and Fantastic Four are coming as well. So the Ironheart character, Riri Williams, was introduced in The Invincible Iron Man. That was her first appearance. That series is going to be coming either later this year, more likely next year. And then for Fantastic Four, we're starting to get some rumors of who the MCU cast of Fantastic Four is. Nothing's been confirmed yet. Everyone keeps waiting for Galactus or Silver Surfer to show up. I don't know why Marvel is dragging their feet, but I'm just telling you, based off of someone who's covered them for a long time, they will bring in someone else to be the villain of it. So I think Terrax, his first appearance in Fantastic Four comics, is a better one to look at. He's been rumored to be someone who might be at least a subordinate or might be the announced villain of it, and then a big bad might be revealed behind the scenes. It's just Marvel seems to want to wait for the right moments to introduce who their major marquee villains are. So that's just my assessment of it. Okay, I've been talking for a long time. If anyone has questions about this stuff, I can go into more detail about what I do, but hopefully this has been helpful to you for... Yeah, buddy, thanks, man. I really love analyzing these things. Again, and my main mission, hey man, is to just shout out the artists who made this stuff. Because in my opinion, I don't know if the studio heads appreciate the artists enough. I hope they're being compensated. I hope they're being paid, because without them, we wouldn't have any of this. I wouldn't have my job. We wouldn't be here. And I think they produced all this great art as a work for hire, working for Marvel Comics. And unfortunately, just the contracts that they are pressured to sign doesn't allow them to be compensated for future film adaptations. But I think it's on us to demand that they're compensated correctly. Because, or just give them a percentage, give them a fraction of a percent of these movies that make hundreds of millions of dollars. Because like without them, none of us would be here, and these movies wouldn't be around, and people wouldn't have jobs, and the industry wouldn't be where it is right now. And we wouldn't have like these important moments where we could come together and things like this and meet people and network and find people we love. So I'm about to give a whole speech for the Writers Guild of America, I think, right now by accident. That's not why I'm up here, I swear to you. But if anyone has any questions, come find me, come chat with me. I'm happy to chat with you. I've loved all the people I've met here so far, and I appreciate everyone from Shortbox to put this together. Again, give everyone at Shortbox a round of applause. Yeah, we have a question. Yeah, I think the last slide might be like a plug to subscribe. Yeah. So yeah, you can subscribe to my channel on New Rockstars or Deep Dive NR. It's part of the New Rockstars network. Or you can follow me at Erik Voss. It's in the name, not the game. Someone told me that and I feel like I have to use it. I don't ever feel good about it. But yeah, you can find all of our film analysis on these channels. We cover not just Marvel and Star Wars and DC. We've covered The Last of Us and House of the Dragon, other HBO shows. And on the Deep Dive channel, I'm going back to cover classic titles. So I did an analysis of the 1989 Batman, the Tim Burton Batman, and like Back to the Future. This week we have a Matrix analysis coming out. We're doing a simulated reality month because who knows what reality we're living in at any given moment. We hit some inflection point at some point, we never look back. All right, everybody, have a great time for the rest of the day, and I'll see you around. Thanks, everybody.